everyone. Hello. Okay. I know there are some lurkers. Hello, Ayak, Aisha. Hi, Doodle. Today is such a great day. Okay. And I am going to be talking and sharing with you information from the author Keisha Khanyahl. Hey, Dulce Vita, Art of Aries. Okay. You know, if you want to donate anyone, I always keep that up. I'm going to make it smaller. Okay, it's just on the side. But this is about Keisha today. This is about Keisha today. And I have to say, this is so exciting for a lot of reasons. I'm going to share something when I call her. And often on my channel and with different content creators, we talk about Blackistan. We talk about the things that go on in Blackistan, a lot of things that happen to Black women that you don't hear about, and things that also pertain to children you don't hear about. So, I want to get this started right now. Let's get this interview started. And I can't wait to hear and see the comments, hear your opinions in the comments section. Perhaps there are some questions you might have for Keisha at the end of the interview. So here we go. We are going to talk about her book. She is the author. Actually, I'm sorry about that. Before we start this interview, let me share a little bit more. Okay. Now, her name is Keisha. She is the author of the book you see, Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads, Stories of Childhood Trauma to Spiritual Triumph. Okay? Spiritual Triumph and the Daughter of Crackheads. All right. I want to show you something. Now, her book is about to be released on Amazon. And this is a little bit about the book. She said, in the 80s, well, it was perfectly imperfect. There was good music, fancy fashion, and drugs being flooded into every urban neighborhood in America. Crack, sometimes called rock, made its presence known in unimaginable ways, especially for the children growing up during this time. This book is a collection of stories, childhood memories of growing up in heaven that became hell in a very short amount of time. Prepare to be taken on a journey about a young girl growing up in the middle of the crack epidemic and how those experiences eventually led to forgiveness, compassion, understanding, and a lifelong lesson in self-love. The book is currently being sold on Amazon as a pre-order to be released May 1st. There is also a signed paperback pre-order being sold at www.journeytowell-beingstore.org. Okay? She says this also. Many like to watch the crack era FX television show on Fox called Snowfall. Keisha Khanyahl lived it and survived a sad childhood to tell the story. A riveting story that is available again at Amazon.com. It will be available officially May 1st, 2021, which is just a few short days away. Also, you can purchase it again at journeytowellbeing.org. Okay? So, I am going to call her up right now so she can share her story. All right, so let's do this. So many of you will hear this and listen to this, and this is pretty amazing.
Hello there.
Hello, Keisha.
How are you?
I am okay. I'm so excited, and I wanted to tell you, you are the
Mhm.
first person I have ever interviewed on my channel.
Oh, wow. Oh, I feel so blessed.
So you
Thank you for that opportunity.
you are making history, okay?
Oh,
So
well, thank you
I'm
for that.
very happy to have you on, and everyone, again, as you can see, her name is Keisha Khanyahl, and the book is called Memoirs from a Daughter of Crackheads, Stories of Childhood Trauma to Spiritual Triumph. Now, you said that you were afraid to write this book.
I was.
Very often a lot of women, people, period, but especially a lot of black women they tend to hold on to a lot of pain. They don't tell of what happens in the family because the family doesn't want you to embarrass them. You have to save the image. And, you know, I feel like this when bad things happen, you have a right to speak about it if you want to because it happened to you. They did it to you. It's your story.
That's correct. I actually did go through that, and that is exactly why I was afraid. I'd written the story in 2015, or at least that's when I started writing it, but it's taken me this long to get to this stage of the process because of fear of what my family would think about what I was doing, what I was saying. And it literally took me almost dying, to be honest with you, to finally get to that place where I said, you know what, I'm gonna do everything I want to do, and just push through that fear and got to this place. So you're
Now,
right, people hold on to a lot of trauma. So
was it just your parents who didn't want you to write this book, or was it more family members?
to be really honest with you, it was fear that I created. My parents only just now found out about that I was writing the book or that the book was completed maybe in the past 6 months. So it was self-inflicted fear produced by a lot of things, mainly religion, got to take care of your parents, got to make sure you don't embarrass the family, that type of stuff that I created for myself. Um, when I finally did tell my parents, my mom didn't take it as hard as my dad did, which I expected. And but it was more just self-inflicted, holding on to that trauma, concerned about what other people would think. That thing, that family thing that keeps us holding on, that hush hush, sweep it under the rug kind of thing. Self-inflicted. We were brought up to do that. So I continued to do it until recently.
I've wanted to write a book as well. So many people have so much dysfunction in their families. So, is this book, is it an ebook?
It's an ebook and it's a paperback, and it'll be released on May 1st. It's available now for pre-order, but on May 1st you can buy a paperback as well as an ebook copy. And I encourage you to write your story. I encourage anybody who has a story to write that story. If you're right, so many people have so much trauma, and every time somebody says, I was gonna write a book, I always say, do it. It helps with a lot of healing.
Oh, yes. Now,
Mm-hmm.
also, will it be available on Kindle?
Mm-hmm. It'll be available on Kindle. Excuse me. You can go to Amazon and buy it. It'll be available on iBooks, Barnes and Noble, and you'll be able to buy both a paperback copy as well as the ebook copy on any of those sites. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my webpage, journeytowellbeing.com, .org, and you can buy it there, and then you'll get a copy of it signed by me. But it'll be available everywhere May 1st.
Okay. So, I have your picture up here, and you have this beautiful smile, but behind that smile was a lot of pain.
A lot of pain. A lot of pain that I didn't even know I had until I started writing, you know? But yeah, we all do that as women, don't we? We smile, look pretty, but then you never know what we hide behind those eyes and those smiles.
And how long did it take you to heal?
I'm still healing. It'll probably be a continual thing. Um, I'm still triggered, by certain things. There's certain things that I still get bothered by. However, as long as I continue to work at that healing, I think that I will forever be okay. And I think that goes for a lot of us who have experienced any type of a trauma. It never really goes away. You just manage it.
Yes. Yes, I do. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine some of them. I did grow up around abuse, but when you have parents, I don't want to say crackheads, but they were, users. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, I do have some pictures up here, so give me one quick little second. Now, you grew up in the 80s. Are you in your 30s still?
I actually was born in the 70s, but my experiences occurred in the 80s. I was born in the mid 70s, so I was 10, 11, 12 in the midst of the crack epidemic, and I grew up in Oakland in the middle of it. And so I saw things that 8, 9, 10-year-old girls shouldn't see, and experienced things 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old girls shouldn't experience. I'm in my 40s.
Okay. And all right. Now, you said that the show Snowfall, you lived it.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
lived
did,
it.
from a child's perspective, yes.
Okay. So, many films, you have films like New Jack City that was really popular. A lot of I find that a lot of films and movies, not just these, sometimes they can sort of glamorize the drug life, or when you do see the pain, it's often of the drug dealers or the users. You don't always see the effects on the children. No one,
That is correct.
no one likes to talk about what happens to the children. So you said that you had lived this life. So could you tell us a little bit more, if you don't mind? What I don't want,
Absolutely.
I don't want too much. I don't want to ruin the book with you saying everything from the book, but um,
Uh-huh.
you said that you saw things and things happened to you that shouldn't happen to an 8 or 9-year-old. So could you share some things that you would like to share with us?
Absolutely. So yeah, growing up in the middle of the crack epidemic, well, for starters, I lost both of my parents. They're still alive, and they're doing the best they can today. However, at that time, they may as well have been not alive because I was put into survival mode, and I think many of us had that experience. And as a result of that, there was hunger. Hunger was probably the most prominent, especially in the beginning, because the money was being spent elsewhere. But then there's rape and there's sexual abuse, and all of it kind of went hand in hand. Um, those three things are the things that were really prominent as far as my life is concerned. And I can't speak for other children, but I can tell you that it's a common theme among the young people in my generation who grew up in the 80s in the midst of the crack epidemic. We were hungry. We were being raped. We were being molested. We were being sold. I mean, we were selling. We were selling, drugs. We were doing whatever we needed to do to survive. And you're right, it's not discussed enough. In fact, it's not discussed at all. The experiences of the children who have to survive and the effects that life has on us, not just then, but in our adult lives, as far as the decisions that we make, how we choose our men, um, how we choose our careers, if we even have those choices. Some of us didn't even make it. And, someone said to me recently, the drug dealers are glamorized. And, I don't understand that. Unfortunately, us kids are the ones that have the most suffering. And not like I want to do apples to oranges here, but I'm kind of doing apples to oranges here because I I think it needs to be discussed. That trauma is manifesting in many ways today, as far as crime and how we raise our children, and among other things. And I think it needs to be discussed more, and that's why I wrote the book.
Now, you said that you were raped, that you were sold.
Correct.
You were sold by your own parents?
I was sold by family.
By
drugs.
Your family?
Correct.
To random strangers who wanted crack?
Not random strangers, drug dealers.
At 8 and 9 years old?
10, 11.
My goodness. And did your mother, okay, were your mother and father, were they drug dealers and users, or just users?
Just users, both of them.
They were users, but people in your family were also users. So this was it this was your main family, like aunts and uncles, cousins and stuff?
That's correct.
So
not distant relatives.
So
close relatives.
It's sort of like the DeBarge family, where it was the family was hooked on drugs.
It was.
And
it was exactly like that.
My goodness. I don't think I would be able to forgive my family that sold me to grown men to rape me for drugs. Now,
it's a tough thing to do.
Okay, and are your parents, I'm getting a little personal, but are your parents and family members who were on drugs, are they off the drugs now?
Most of them are. I'll put it this way. They're not doing crack cocaine anymore.
Have any of them... I'm sorry, go ahead.
However, there's other things in play, like prescription drugs. The majority of my family members have left the crack cocaine drug along, but some of them still have addictions to other things.
Have any of them apologized to you and begged for forgiveness from you?
Yes, they have. So my father only recently found out about this abuse. However, my mother did know. My father, who didn't know, was literally, my father is, like many young girls, was my hero. And so, it was hard to go through what I was going through without my hero there to help me, because before the drugs, he was just that. However, when he did find out about it recently, he was literally beside himself. And I genuinely believe he probably wouldn't have allowed me to go through those experiences had he known, even with drugs. However, my mom did know, and she has apologized in her own way. She has said she knows that she wasn't the best mother. But my mother has her own trauma, and not like I'm ever excusing any of the trauma that I experienced. I will say that I understand today what I didn't understand as a kid, which is that there's trauma all the way around. It's generational. And, today, I don't have the closest relationship with my mother. But if I did, I'd probably hug her and just let her know that I understand.
Do you have any children?
I do. I have 4 children that I gave birth to, and then 2 stepdaughters.
Now, with what you went through, would you have your children around your family even now?
That's a good question. I spent a lot of years, particularly my father I have a close relationship with. But there's other family members for years I would not even allow them in my home near my children, even before I even had children. I didn't want them to be around me. As I got older and became an adult and started to understand what was going on, I didn't want to be around a certain type of element. But as you'll read, my book talks about spiritual triumph, and it took me to be in my 40s to get to that place where I could forgive and make amends with my family members, who I haven't even been able to do with all of them, but most of them I have. And so today, yes. But even just 3 years ago, absolutely not. Not even welcome in my home.
For me, if you have sold me to someone to be raped as a baby, because 10 is still a baby, you're not, for me, you're not coming anywhere near my daughters, especially, because no, but so, okay, you said that you were also dealing yourself. How old were you when you started selling drugs?
So I was probably 9 or 10, and it was because we lived in a drug house. And the drugs that were being dealt out of that house were prescription drugs, not crack cocaine. We lived with a man who was crippled, and he was probably in his 60s or 70s, and he was much of a creep. And whenever there was no one home but me, I was the one who had to go to the window and say, "What do you need?" I always found it interesting that grown people would be willing to tell such a young girl what their drug needs were. But anyway, I would then go tell the dealer what they needed, and he would give me whatever, and I would give it to them, and they would give me the money, and I would take it back to them. Because I had a drug addicted mother, and I don't want to give too much of my book away either, but there were times where she would have her own supply and have me sell if whatever the drug he was looking for was something that she had on hand, she would want me to sell that instead, and it would be pretty much placebo, fake, and I would have to put the money somewhere, and she kept track of it all, and so yeah, it wasn't a good thing for no little girl, let me tell you.
How common is it for parents who sell drugs and are users to have their children involved or sell them to grown men? How common is this?
You know what? To be honest with you, I'm not sure. What I can say is that during the 80s, anything went. It was an anything goes time. You got to remember, people didn't even know what the effects of crack was going to be. They thought, the drug abusers thought that they were going to be abusing something like they would weed, like it would be something that they could start and stop whenever they wanted type deal. So they had no idea what they were getting themselves into when they started it. So because of that, and the way that crack works within the body, people who were abusing it would do anything to include put their children in danger. They didn't care. So while I can only speak for myself, I can guarantee you that I was not the only kid out there, just out there,
I believe you. During the 90s, I used to live in New York. So when I was a little girl, there used to be, it wasn't the crack bottles, but I can't describe it, but these little clear looking bottle things. It was all over the ground, all over the place. My mother told me when crack was out, there were long lines down the street, and she didn't know what the hell was going on, and then she found out they were waiting in line to get the crack, and that so many people from the neighborhood were on it, that she had never seen anything like that. So people think, when you see the movie New Jack City, it really was like that.
It was. It was. I lived in an apartment complex at one point very similar to that in Oakland. But it was so new, not even the drug dealers themselves had any idea what it was about to become, They just thought they were selling this new thing, similar to, it's cocaine. They didn't realize exactly how it was going to affect people. And, that's why there were so many crack babies. Women was out there. It was ugly time. But at the same time, I love to say this, and I say this in my book more than once, more than twice. They didn't know, and that's not me making excuses for the adults, because they knew right from wrong, but they didn't know how that drug was going to affect them. Like, they had no idea. And they had no idea the behavior that they would take up as a result of how that drug affected them, you know? Now, today, that's a whole nother story because everybody knows. So I'm always blown away when I hear about some new person who got addicted to crack. Like, are you serious?
You know, Samantha in the chat says, "Why were people so accepting of the drugs? It's a serious addiction." But that's true. I don't do the whole when you've seen my channel. I don't do the whole blame game of, oh, the white man brung it, and it doesn't matter. People have a choice if they want to get high or not. Like, I have a choice if I want to go to the liquor store or not. But it is a real addiction. DMX passed away recently because of drugs, and you have people who can, period, when it comes to people who are on drugs, they don't understand how strong of an addiction it is. It is something serious. That's why I never wanted to try drugs, because, I'm addicted to chocolate and eating sweets sometimes. And I'm like, I can't imagine doing a drug, what might happen to me. And, it scared me away. We see the celebrities you grow up with. Most of them have died from drug overdoses. Whitney, Michael, so many, countless. So that always used to scare me from ever trying something like that. So when your parents...
I've never abused drugs. I don't even know what they're like, except, okay, I have to take that back. So I'm also a cancer survivor. And during my treatment was the very first time that I ever tried like a THC oil ever. Like, so I've never ever been high before. I never wanted to be because, and even, through surgeries, I never took prescription drugs just because I still have close family members that struggle with prescription drug use. So I've always just been terrified. I don't want to be like any of them, and I certainly don't want my children to have to suffer in ways that I did.
Okay. And I'm listening to you and seeing if there are any questions as well. Cold Blooded in the chat says that, the CIA played a part. It's a business. I know most black people, they don't have airplanes to bring in the cocaine from Colombia and places like that. But my thing is this, people can bring in whatever they want. But at the end of the day, a person has a choice if they want to get high or not. No one forces anyone to take drugs. Nobody forces anybody to become an alcoholic, so.
That's true. That's true. I do understand that perspective too, though. You wouldn't be here for people to be addicted to if, CIA did play a part. If you watch Snowfall, you could see that. Or if you read any of the books on it, you would know that the CIA played a major part in flooding our community specifically with crack cocaine or cocaine in general that ended up being crack cocaine. But you're right, it's your choice. You have to, even though they didn't know, they had no idea what that drug was, how addictive that drug was going to be. They had no idea. But they didn't have to do it. So, yeah.
I've seen the movies, the mafia movies, where they'll say, well, look, we're not going to sell it in our neighborhood. We sell it to other people, So Aisha Mumford says she's happy to see that you broke the generational curse.
Thank you, Aisha. And it wasn't easy, but I'm glad that I got here, because it was time. And also I want to be able to help other youth who are still going through this. They are the ones who I really wrote the book for when I first started it, was to help other kids who have drug-addicted parents right now to know that they are not alone, that somebody else out here, a lot of somebody else's out here have experienced very similar things, and how can I help? So that's what it's about for me. How can I help you
now
to get past it?
Do you think the crack epidemic is just as bad now as it was then?
No. Not at all. No, okay. I think that the drugs of today is probably, they've moved back into heroin and a lot of methamphetamine. Obviously, crack is still around. People are still abusing it. But when people abuse methamphetamine, it's a very similar high from what I hear, and it lasts longer. So people spend less money, the crack epidemic was what it was in the 80s because it was new and nobody knew how addictive it was going to be, and then it spilled over into, us children who had to suffer and people dying, their relatives being killed, trying to maintain territory, that type of thing. That doesn't happen these days. It's not the same as it was in the 80s.
Okay. So you started to help. You started your nonprofit called Journey to Wellbeing.
That's right.
And you said that you started this to help with resources, and you were fighting cancer, and I'm happy you survived it. And you said that this book was easy to write but hard to publish. So tell us,
yes.
With your nonprofit, what kind of services are you offering?
Sure. So what Journey to Wellbeing was created for, I always, at the age of 18, 19, 20, knew I wanted to help other youth who went through what I went through. I just didn't know how. And I used to have this big dream, if I ever won the lotto, I would do this and I want this. And in-house training and therapy for young people who need it, and clothing and food, all kinds of things that I thought that, all the things I needed that I didn't have as I was growing up. One day it just hit me. Why am I waiting to win the lottery? Like, that's probably such a 1 in a million type of thing. Why don't I do this now? So, yes, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, almost stage 4, stage 3C.
Lord.
And as I fought for my life, I was like, I'm going to do this. This is the name I want. Let me see if it's available. It was, and it just became a domino effect of, one thing after the next. Let me do this thing. Oh, okay, I made it this far. Let's try, registering it. Let's try. And next thing you know, I had a nonprofit. I changed the model. It's not just helping youth anymore. It's helping youth as well as cancer patients. But something I discovered while fighting is that there aren't enough resources for people, or women specifically of color, who get cancer. So the type of resources that are offered at this time, like recently we had a laundry drive. One of the things that I struggled with as a youth was clean clothes. I didn't have any, and so I went to school often dirty. As a girl who's dirty, there's an odor involved, and so we had a laundry drive, and we gave you $25 vouchers along with laundry soap and fabric softener, bleach, so that they can wash their clothes and feel comfortable going to school with clean clothes. As far as cancer is concerned, recently we gave away certain things that aid in the healing process, such as eucalyptus candles and spoons that are made out of wood, because when you are undergoing chemo, it changes the taste in your mouth. So when you eat with metal, you taste metal. So we just want to give people things that will help them make life easier as they try to fight. Hopefully the end game will be an in-house center where kids can express themselves and do performing arts if they wanted to, or sports if they wanted to, or spoken word, and get some therapy. I'm not there yet, but I hope to get there soon.
Okay. So you said that, this is the stories of childhood trauma to spiritual triumph. So did you grow up, your childhood, are you Christian?
I was, but I am not anymore.
Okay.
I am highly spiritual. So I practice meditation. I believe highly in being intentional. I am a heavy meditator. And one of my close family members has been recently sharing her Buddhist beliefs with me. I am not quite there yet, but I am in the midst of learning about it. But I consider myself spiritual. But I grew up Christian.
Okay. And when you came into your spirituality, is that what helped you get through?
It is. It's what changed my life. I don't even think that I would have been able to get to this place without it. And that's where the spiritual triumph comes from. It was what helped me to forgive my parents and forgive my other family members that were involved. I was able to forgive all of the family members that failed me as a child, because it started when I read a book called The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And that book literally changed my perspective of life. I don't think I would have survived cancer without it. Helped me understand that I create my own reality, and that my life and my choices are what create my future. And I honestly don't believe I would be here alive today without those teachings. And I'm grateful for them. And yes, I was able to forgive. I didn't even know I needed to forgive my father until I started writing that book. He was like my favorite person. And then I got angry as I wrote the book, like, hot dog, it's like, really? Like, sometimes as I was writing, I would remember things and just fall out. Like, I can't believe this stuff happened. And developed in anger. But then I was able to forgive, with the help of spirituality. So I'm highly grateful.
So now you have forgiven, but with everything you went through, I know you more than likely, you're like, listen, I'm not going to repeat this with my kids. I'm going to do the opposite of what they put me through.
That is correct. That's why I've never used drugs. That's why they will never see what I saw, ever. And they know my story very well. And, it was one of my kids, even when I finally spoke to my dad about my book, and his reaction was not a very good one in the beginning. And it was my son, my adult son, who came to me and was like, Mom, I don't care what he says, write the book. Put the book out. Don't listen to him. Put that book out. My kids have a different type of respect for me than I had for my parents as I grew up, or particularly my mother, as I was growing up. And that's intentional on my part and how I chose to raise them, Wow. It's a completely different ballgame when it comes to my kids versus how I grew up.
Oh, man. Well, I'm just happy that you got through it. You are letting go of the pain. Do you plan on writing any more books about your experiences?
I have one more book. Yeah, just one more book in me. This book mostly focuses on the things that I experienced in my childhood. And I didn't even write all of it. I wrote enough to be able, for a young person to be able to read it and know they're not alone. I could write a million books about my childhood, but my next book will be about how those experiences affect me now. The choices that I make and how I raise my children. Different triggers, like being hungry. As a single mother in my early days, I would much sooner have a full refrigerator than to pay the rent, because that's how big hunger or even just weight and obesity. Like, a lot of people don't understand the psychological trauma that happens on the inside of somebody who's overweight, how they got that way and why and what traumas they're creating that. For me, I spent a long time heavily overweight, mostly because I would just eat as a teen, thinking that I was not going to be able to eat, like my food was going to disappear because that happened as a child, So I just want to focus my next book on those things, on how what I do today is basically a strong derivative of what I experienced in my childhood.
Okay. Cold Blooded in the chat wanted to know, how did you find God? Because it took her a while to get there.
Yeah. I think that journey is different for everybody. For me, it took separating from my spouse. I was heavily reliant on him and other people to be what I needed to be for myself. And when I separated from my spouse and it was just me all alone, oh man, I didn't have a choice. It was just me and God at that point. It was like, okay, now what? And I think that once I was able to get still and quiet and able to hear my guidance and follow the guidance of the universe, everything shifted. Sometimes you just got to get quiet. But I can't say that will work for everybody. It's just what worked for me. I think everybody's journey is individual to them. And if you're not there yet, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. It just means that there's other things that have to be experienced before you get there.
Okay. And you mentioned self-love. My last question for you is, what is self-love to you? What is that?
Ooh, self-love for me Self-love for me is showering myself and showing myself every bit of love that I expected to get from others. So that could mean feeling a way that maybe society doesn't agree with. Not always feeling good about a situation and just loving on me anyway and just sitting with myself and saying, okay, I'm going to honor this moment. I'm going to honor how I feel right now, whether that's anger or sadness or fear, whatever that is. You know, society likes to tell us you can't be fear and you got to let certain stuff go, and you know, it doesn't work like that. If life was as easy as letting things go, then nobody would have any trauma, you know. We would all be free of trauma. But what I do is sit with it, though, and allow myself to feel it and respect the aspect of myself that's feeling away and let myself be there and love on myself in the process and remind myself of how perfect I am and how amazing I am, no matter what I'm feeling. Or what I'm going through. And I think that is the key to my survival, is loving on me in ways that, and not expecting anybody else to do that for me. That's what self-love is to me, is honoring every aspect of what I'm feeling from moment to moment.
Okay. That's a beautiful definition. And I want you to keep radiating your smile, and don't get depressed. You know, you said this book helped you, and I hope that everything continues to get better for you. And it's just really great again that you did in fact break generational curses. So I thank you for, coming on my channel. And everyone, again, you can pre-order her book on Amazon. It will be officially out on Amazon May 1st, which is only a few days away. So
Yep.
you can also, it's an ebook, it's on Kindle, you can order it as a paperback. Share this video and check her out. Thank you so much again, Keisha.
And thank you. I so appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Of course.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't this wonderful? She was the first person I've ever interviewed. You know who you are, who let me know about Keisha. I don't know if you want me to make it public, but thank you so much. And, be inspired to also share your stories, as she said, because you can help someone. And I know so many of you have some stories as well that you would like to share, you know. So that's it for right now for today. She, I don't often like to use the strong woman, word, but the truth is she is strong emotionally and spiritually to overcome what she did. I mean, God, you heard some of the things that happened, and I'm sure she didn't say everything. It's in the book. Read the book. This is a real life story. And no child should have to go through that, point blank, period. And she found the courage and the strength to forgive and for herself and, not repeat those patterns. So I thank you all, and I thank you again, Keisha. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.